It's difficult to say what continues to draw me to Kill a Mockingbird. Like almost everybody else, I first read it in 9th grade, and I think I read it again in college, and then put it aside for years and years. One day as I was cleaning out my bookshelves, I ran across a copy, and I thought, I haven't read this in a while, so I sat down and reread it, and I was astonished at how complex the work is, at the kinds of sophisticated questions regarding race, ethnicity, and difference this book is capable of producing. I decided to teach it in an advanced literary theory class to undergraduates one semester, and I made the students promise that although they had read the book in high school, they would reread it for the class. And I was gratified to see that every one of them came away from it surprised at how difficult the book is. And the discussions that the novel generated in class were incredibly sophisticated, having to deal with one of the things that came up. The students could not decide whether the book was Pollyanishly optimistic or incredibly cynical. And we decided that one of the reasons it has succeeded in selling so many copies and appealing to so many readers is that because it can generate an irony that can take both of those positions into account. It seems on the one hand very simplistic, and it seems on the other hand very complex and cynical. And that's how you know you have a masterpiece. It can generate multiple forms of reading. When we reread To Kill a Mockingbird, we should keep in mind that although the novel asks us to believe we can understand other people's perspectives, we as thinking adults need to remember that we cannot understand the world as Boo Radley sees it. We do not understand the world as Tom Robinson sees it because we haven't shared their experiences. We don't understand their fears, their aspirations. While on the one hand, it's important for us to remember these are different kinds of people, we should not take that extra step, and it's a step of arrogance and presumption, to think we can see the world as they do. Scout thinks that when she stands on the Radley porch and looks at the street from Boo Radley's perspective, but Scout is a child. She's 7 years old. It's okay for her to think that. When adults reread this novel, we have to keep in mind that it is not possible to walk around in someone else's skin. And we have to leave other people the leeway to experience and to understand the world in the way they'll understand it, and they can then teach us something about the way they understand the world. When we think of the title of To Kill a Mockingbird, most of us recall the scene in the novel where Jem asks Atticus if he'll get him an air rifle. Atticus agrees, and he tells him, "You can get all the blue jays you want if you can hit him, but remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Mockingbirds don't do anything but make nice music for us." That seems like a really nice, noble sentiment, but I think one of the things to keep in mind as we consider the complexity of To Kill a Mockingbird in the 21st century is that mockingbirds only imitate the sounds of other birds. They don't have a voice of their own. When we assume that we can stand in someone else's shoes, or when we can walk around in someone else's skin, we're effectively asking them to be our mockingbird. That is, we're asking them to speak like us, to think like us, to sing our song. What we're doing is not letting those people have their own identities, their own positions, and in fact their own voices. To Kill a Mockingbird teaches us that if we're going to learn to understand each other, we have to let other people think, speak, and act the way they need to. One of the things that To Kill a Mockingbird does is box people into particular forms of identity. So, for example, we have the Finch family, one of the professional families in Macomb County. But we also have the Ewell family, another white family, but this is a family that lives in the town dump. In terms of the African American families, we have the Robinsons, where Tom Robinson has been perhaps unjustly accused of rape. We also have the white sharecroppers. But in any event, each of these people inhabits a boxed identity, and they really can't get out of it in the novel. Here in 2010, we've begun to question the rigidity of some of those boxes. We have, for the first time ever, an African American in the White House. So on the one hand, in the 50 years since the publication of the novel, we are beginning to question the rigidity of the categories into which we put people. But on the other hand, we have to keep asking ourselves, are we truly as a culture ready to let those identities go? I think it's pretty clear from recent examples that we still depend very heavily on the rigidity of identity categories. While it might be the case in 2010 that more people feel they're more comfortable with the relationship between the races in our culture, I think what we've also seen is that certain other kinds of differences are taking on the work that previously we asked race to do. So, for example, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of argument, a lot of debate about questions surrounding immigration. There are people who are concerned that too many people are coming into the U.S. and, for want of a better word, corrupting what American identity is. We too often forget that American identity has been, from the very beginning, a hybrid identity, that it has always been composed of different kinds of people working together. So I think that while on the one hand we tell ourselves we're ready to let go of these identity categories, I think what we're seeing is that we're just moving them onto other forms of difference, and we're continuing to produce forms of difference in an attempt to understand who we are.